to the podcast. I'm Paul.
And I'm Mark.
So what's on tap today?
Well, I got the word that we're going to talk about the new 72-hour waiting period for firearms.
Purchasing the firearm.
Yeah. I was reading up on that, Paul. It goes in effect August 9th, Friday.
That's what they're saying, yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was, 90 days after
After they pass it into law, it takes effect 90 days after.
Then we're going to tell some deer stories.
Sure.
Because I've been going through Derrick's journal pretty extensively and going through pictures. And
so you get lots of deer stories fresh on the mind there.
well, actually, in particular that year, that 1990 season.
Yeah.
Was a really like every day was right full of
adventure.
Yeah. There's a lot of interesting stuff happening that week.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of details I wasn't aware of. But
well, you can fill me in. It's been a long time. That
you'll remember.
34 years.
Yeah.
34 years ago.
Yeah.
A long time ago.
I was 8 years old.
I was 30, right around 30 years old.
Jeez.
So, 31.
So, this is what, episode 37?
Yeah.
Took like 3 weeks off.
Yeah.
We were on vacation.
Some time off.
And went up to PEI for family vacation. That was nice.
Summer fun.
Yeah. PEI reminds me a lot of Aroostook County, northern Maine.
Yeah, they do a lot of potatoes there, don't they?
Driving through the back roads of PEI, there was a lot of, it's just potato fields.
Yeah.
Other than the red soil.
I thought they did a lot of potatoes.
But it just reminded me so much of our hometown, driving around there.
Yeah.
And it felt like being at home.
Yeah.
But I'll tell you, the ocean water up there is warm.
Yeah.
Way warmer than the coast of Maine.
Yeah. It's funny how that works further north, but I guess they get the Gulf Stream.
They do. I guess there was one beach in particular. I forget which one. But it supposedly has the warmest ocean water north of Florida.
Yeah.
And I know when we're on the coast of Maine, if I go out in the water with the kids, I get to like my knees.
Yeah.
And my legs are like numb.
It generally stays, when I was a kid, when we went to the coast every year, it was generally around 55 degrees, which, like you say, would numb you.
Yeah.
Your feet would turn blue.
Up there, it must have been like upper 70s.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's warm.
I'm not very comfortable. Like, water has to be warm for me to
same
get
with
in.
me. I don't tolerate cool water very well.
And that was comfortable for me. So we'll touch. Just always like to put a little new stuff in that's relevant to
that's pretty
Maine hunters. That 72-hour waiting period when you purchase a gun is coming into effect. Like you said, August 9th.
August 9th.
And man, what a racket that is.
Yeah. They tried to get it in last year, and they didn't have the support in the legislature. In 2023, so after the Lewiston shooting, they thought the time was right for them to try again, and they did it, and it was funny. The governor neither vetoed it or signed it into law. I guess if she lets it sit there for 10 days, it becomes law.
Just playing politics.
Yeah. So Mills let it sit on her desk for 10 days, and it became law. And
but did you read the law actually?
I did. Yeah.
Yeah. I can't imagine being a firearm dealer because there's more questions than answers.
They haven't. The last I knew, they hadn't received any guidance on just exactly how to implement that.
How do you enforce it?
Yeah. They were asking, what are the specifics, and nobody had put out anything. The government hadn't put out anything on how they, the particulars or whatever.
You're almost at a point in time nowadays where it's almost like everything you do is illegal. Yeah. Like there's so many laws and regulations and stuff. It's like it's almost impossible to do anything without feeling like you're breaking the law anyway.
You are. And a lot of times I've heard it said you don't even know you're breaking the law, but there's probably a law against something you're doing.
Jeez, it becomes
so you're probably breaking the law.
Yeah.
Laws. Yeah.
I don't want to get into game laws, but you look at our fishing laws and stuff like that. Boys, they can be really complicated. And even talking to game wardens, they're like, because I tell them, I'm like, how do you keep all this stuff straight?
Yeah.
You know, slot limits and what body of water you're on, and it changes. And
well, even the wording in the law books, like I went fishing with a friend this spring, and I was using 2 flies on one rod, and he thought that was illegal, and he read the law to me. He said, you can't use any more than 1 baited hook. Oh, I said, well, that's 1 baited hook.
You're not.
It applies to, like, when you're fishing for smelt in the wintertime, you can use multiple baited hooks.
Yeah.
In the summertime, you can't.
Yeah.
So, but he was interpreting it that you could only use 1 hook per line.
Yeah.
Like I say, and so the laws they're convoluted and they're confusing and
yeah.
So
the law that 72-hour waiting period law. So as the law reads, it's like a seller may not knowingly deliver a firearm to a buyer sooner than 72 hours after the agreement.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of ad-libbed that a little bit, but it's like, what the heck's an agreement? Is it a purchase agreement? Is it like, and then it's one thing that first popped into mind is if you buy a gun online or order one from an out-of-state dealer, does that still apply to you?
Right.
Because you still have to have it transferred through a local dealer to go pick it up. But they're not the owner of the firearm. They're just the middleman that's transferring the ownership to you. So I'm like, so if I ordered a gun from, say, another state, and dealers charge you a transfer fee, transfer the firearm from that dealer to them.
Well, in the law, it said that, FFL people were exempt if you had a federal firearms license.
But I'm the gun purchaser.
Right.
Not the gun dealer.
Exactly.
But I may be ignorant on this. Yeah. Like, is the gun dealer considered the purchaser of the gun at that point? And then I'm purchasing it from them?
Yeah. And also another thing they said, well, family members transferring among. So what's considered a family member? Is it immediate family, brother, sister, mother, father, or do you go to uncles and aunts, to cousins? What?
Well, they listed it out. I think they said second degree, up to second degree.
I don't remember reading anything on.
I think in the end of that, in the reading the law, I believe it was second degree. I still have it pulled up on the computer too. I could look. But
so what is second degree?
I think
uncles and aunts.
I don't know what is second degree.
Cousins.
Let's see. What's a second degree family member?
Yeah, because I was curious on that, and of course, law enforcement is exempt. They're exempt from the 72-hour waiting period.
So aunt, uncle, grandparent, grandchild, niece, nephew, or half sibling.
Yeah. Well, that answers that question.
But I should look. I'm quite certain it says second degree in the law. But yeah, exemptions to that 72 hours is. So law enforcement, like you said, corrections officer.
Yeah. Security guards.
Employees of a security company, or if you're a licensed security guard. Like I said, between family members, antique firearms and relics.
Yeah.
Or anytime a background check isn't required. So I mean, I don't know. But like, okay, I'm gonna go become a licensed security guard then.
Yeah.
That I don't have to wait.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. The whole thing is just arbitrary.
It's another step, and it's all about, and that's what gun control is, Paul. It's all about taking small steps towards a final goal, and you don't do it all at once. You don't just come in and
you just
take away everybody. You slowly strip away rights, and
it's like boiling a frog.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
We're eating an elephant, one bite at a time.
One bite at a time. Can't eat the whole thing at one sitting. But
But
what drives me nuts is it's people that aren't familiar with guns, and can't always blame them. They're pretty ignorant of the whole thing, and they just automatically point the finger at guns being bad.
Yeah.
But they're ignorant of firearms.
Right.
Completely. And
that's generally where these laws come from. They come from the metropolitan areas, and that's where the power in the government comes from. It comes from the metropolitan areas, the places like Lewiston and Portland, and that's where the people are. Yeah. That's where the votes are. So consequently,
I wouldn't want to be a gun dealer.
Well, I know the Kittery Trading Post had threatened to move into New Hampshire. I don't know if that's going to happen, but
I mean, they can spit in New Hampshire from their store,
right?
So,
right, they had threatened to go to New Hampshire, whether that happens or not, and I can see it would have affected me a few years ago. I was in Freeport at LL Bean, and I just by happenstance found a gun I wanted to buy, and I'm down there. Well, that's 5 hours from my house.
So what? You're going to hang out for 3 days until?
Right. So I bought the gun there, right on site, and came home with it that day, and that wouldn't be possible now.
Yeah.
So.
And then it completely destroys gun shows.
Yeah.
Because you go to a gun show.
Yeah.
I mean, you go purchase a gun at a gun show, and then 3 days later you can get it.
Yeah.
Just
they have to mail it to you or whatever, or mail it to an FFL.
Yeah, but then you're looking at extra cost to have a gun transfer fee with a gun dealer, and so on and so forth. When you just could have picked up the stinking thing. Well, they just won't do gun shows. Yeah, is what'll happen. And anyway, I don't want to complain too much about that because we got some deer stories to talk about. And interesting, I read the reason that suicide prevention was was one of the reasons they wanted this. They and not just suicides but homicides, that they just felt that it gives people a cooling off period. Yeah, 3 days to kind of think about it. But
exactly, that if you wanted to do violence or whatever to somebody or yourself, you would have 3 days to change your mind or whatever. So
that doesn't fix the problem. That doesn't get to the root of the problem.
No,
at all. It doesn't address it. It's
not in my mind. It doesn't.
Putting a Band-Aid over.
Generally, some of the places with the most gun violence have the strictest gun laws. So
they do. Listen, criminals they're going to get a gun.
Yeah.
No matter what, you want something bad enough, you can.
Yeah.
You can get it done. But all right, deer camp stories. So I got to thank Derrick Cote he gave me his journal. If it were me, I'd have a hard time giving a journal out because sometimes you write stuff down.
Oh, absolutely. Because I keep a journal and there's some very personal stuff in there. That
sometimes you're in the moment and you write stuff down that you normally may not say.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate Derrick giving me his journal, and I'll just basically ad lib some stuff out of it.
Yeah.
So it's not overly wordy or overly personal, but there's a lot of details that get left out. And we'll talk about those in a minute.
Sometimes we forget them over time, Paul. I can say that one of the years, 1990, you were talking about, that's 34 years ago. Yeah. And, time will, you may remember the general, but the details and stuff are.
Things get kind of blended in together, stuff like that. But so you guys started going to deer camp in 1987.
Yeah.
The very first day of deer camp was 11/23/1987. And so I was talking to Derrick about it the other day. He was 23 years old.
Yeah, I would have been. I was born in 58, but I was born in the end of the year, December 58. So I'd probably been 28. I think I was 28 years old.
And I was like, man, you guys were just kids.
Yeah, we were.
You had the deer hunting at your fingertips.
Yeah.
Camp up in the North Maine woods in the Allagash.
How remote.
60 miles in the woods.
Yeah, good deer country.
No one around.
Very few people around.
Use of a camp.
Beautiful camp and stuff. And
completely out of touch with. And
then it was a young deer hunter's dream for sure. Then we were young deer hunters. And
in reading Derrick's journal, he appreciated it. Because there's excerpts where he's in the morning, like in 1990 in particular, when you returned to camp, your hands were all bloody. Yeah. He had shot a deer earlier in the year. Yeah. So he was chilling at camp having coffee. And as he was writing, the sun was coming through the window, shining on the journal. There was snow on the ground. Everyone's out hunting. Yeah. He's just chilling, having a couple extra cups of coffee.
Life doesn't get much better than that.
It doesn't.
We were, and all of us had about the same desire and passion to do it. And man, there wasn't one day in the year that you didn't think about going up there. You couldn't wait to get back up there. So
that first year you guys didn't shoot any deer, but you were up there for kind of a short period.
Yeah.
Kind of just cutting your teeth in the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then 1988, so it was 11/21 you guys went up. That night you had 7 inches of new snow.
Perfect, huh?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that was the year there was the earthquake.
Yeah.
At deer camp. And I can remember that. I believe that was Thanksgiving Day.
Yeah.
Of that week. Because we were at some family members' place. And I can remember being in the living room and the chandelier, the light fixture hanging from the ceiling was shaking.
Yeah.
And in Derrick's journal, he said the dishes were shaking. And
the whole camp was shaking. I can remember that. One of the guys, we had deer on the game pole, and one of the guys said he thought something was trying to tear the deer off the game pole for crying out loud, coyotes or something. He blurted that out. We had no idea why the camp was shaking the way it was. I remember that quite well.
So that week in 88, you guys went 4 for 6, which is pretty good.
Yeah.
4 to 6 guys shot deer.
Yeah.
That was, you shot one 205 8-pointer.
Yeah.
Dean shot a nice 8-pointer that was 195.
Yeah.
And then there was a few smaller, a button buck and a doe.
Yeah.
That were shot.
I think Derrick shot a deer.
Yeah, I think that year was his first deer.
Yeah.
He shot a doe. If I remember correctly. I didn't write his name down.
And we tracked that. I remember, Paul, we got that the next day. We went back on what we call the horse barn road, which we've talked about before.
Which I'll put lots of pictures up in this podcast. I know probably a lot of people listen to just the audio, but I'm going to put a lot of pictures up. So you may want to watch it if you want to see some pictures, old pictures.
Yeah.
If not, you're going to miss out on some of them. But
yeah,
go ahead. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Yeah, like I say, I think he had wounded it the day before, Paul. We went in, and we all went in, and I think Derrick was the only one that had a gun. Anyway, we tracked the deer right to its bed, and it was laying there, and I thought we may have thought it was dead laying there, and then all of a sudden it jumped up, and he finished it off. We were all standing around it, though, while it was laying down.
Yeah.
And there was very little blood, as I remember. We had to really look, but we did find it, and he did get it.
The first, and I believe that was his first deer.
Yeah.
That he ever shot. I will say the first 2 years, so 87 and 88, his entries were pretty brief. Just a paragraph for the whole week.
Yeah.
But 89 and 90, he got a little more
wordy.
Detailed.
Huh?
Yeah. So we move on to 89. So your first night at camp, there were several inches of snow. I think on Tuesday you shot an 8-pointer, 202 pounds.
Yeah.
That you tracked in the afternoon.
Actually, I believe it was. No, you're right. It was late in the afternoon. Yeah. That's the one that went across the Squirrel Brook.
Yeah.
Up on Squirrel Mountain.
And him and that
was late in the afternoon. I come out. We went back in and got it at dark.
So he said, him, Dean, and Joe went in. Yeah. And they were back at camp at 7:30. They drug it out for you that night.
They did. Yeah. I told them I was spent. I said, we'll leave it. I had covered it with the coat. Gutted it out and covered it with the coat. And I said, well, that'll be fine until, tomorrow. And they said, oh, no, we're going to go back in and get it. So they did. They went back in and drug the deer out and stuff. So that was...
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that was a good... I can picture that too. That's the one, Paul. I was tracking it, and it'd get into some other deer. I assume he had come into some doe, and you could see deer tracks running, and I looked over, and he was standing there broadside looking at me. I couldn't get my safety off.
Oh,
it was frozen. And I'm pushing with my finger trying to get the crossbolt safety to slide over, and I finally did. I pushed hard, and it
popped over.
Yeah, but there was a second there that I kind of panicked. I couldn't get that crossbolt safety to go over. It had frozen.
He gave you an extra second or two.
Yeah. He stood right there, looking broadside there.
Jeez.
Yeah.
That was a cold week that year.
Yeah.
That deer froze solid.
Yeah. That deer did freeze. I had to take it, I think, down cellar when I get home. You guys, we had pictures of you guys sitting on it, riding it, frozen, and took it down, but set it in the cellar by the wood furnace, hung it up there to get the hide off.
So that year you guys went 3 for 6.
Yeah.
For deer. All right. So I guess in this podcast, we'll spend most of the time 1990 deer camp. That one was there was a lot of stuff going on that week.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I could go on for weeks between all the deer stories and stuff in here. So you guys, 11/18, so November 18th, 1990, you guys get to camp. There was like 3 inches of snow.
Yeah.
But it was crunchy, crusty, terrible.
I think, Paul, that was the year we'd had a big storm early in the year, and it had melted down, but it hadn't melted off completely. But it had melted down to the point, like you say, it was very crusty. You could almost put your entire weight on the crust, and then it would break through.
Okay.
So, like, we had, like, I'm going to say 2 feet of snow that had melted down to 3 inches, and it was, like, crusty.
Wow.
We had a big storm, I think, early in the year, and I remember that year when I shot my biggest buck, there was a doe and a lamb that right where I shot it that had walked by, and the doe would break through, but the lamb would walk on top of the crust.
Okay.
The lamb wouldn't break through the crust. So
that's probably the worst type of snow. Not 3 inches, but like there was one year at the camp we had like a good 7-8 inches, maybe 10 inches of snow. Then we got some rain and there was a crust on top.
Yeah.
And that's hard work when you're like, you step up on crust, break through, step up on crust, break through.
Yeah.
And I just remembered like after a week of that, or maybe it was middle of the week that it happened. I hunted several days on stuff like that. My hip flexors were killing me because I was like high stepping the whole time, and it would catch the front of your toes, and you'd have to
pull it up,
forcefully pull your foot up with every step.
To break through.
It worked a bunch of weird muscles.
That's the way it was in 1990, Paul, as I remember. I can vividly remember, like I say, right before I shot the buck, there was fresh deer tracks there, and a doe and a lamb.
Yeah.
And he may have been following them. It was right on their tracks. I actually hit the track, the doe and the fawn, and I went backtrack.
Okay.
And I know I didn't go very far. As I remember, probably not 100 feet when I looked up, and he was on an old skid trail rubbing his antlers on a tree. I think he was right on their tracks, coming on their tracks.
So that Sunday, you guys, I think Dean met you guys in Ashland, right? You got a ride up in one of his father's trailer trucks.
Yeah, I can't remember that.
Dropped off.
I don't remember that. Yeah.
And anyway, Derrick put in there, he goes, I'm camp cook this year. He shot a 8-point, 160 pounds.
Yeah.
160 pounds, we'll say, on 10/31, 1990.
Yeah.
So that was the first hunter that was successful that year. So he's going to be camp cook. So I like all the little stuff that gets included in, like you guys played cards that night, bed at 9:30. So the next morning he gets up. Of course, he's just hanging around camp. Monday morning, crunchy snow. You walk into camp at 9:30 because you just walked out behind the camp.
Yep.
And so Mark comes in at 9:30 with blood on his hands. You shot it at 7:50 a.m. first morning.
Yeah, right. First thing in the morning. I never hunted, Paul, before deer camp, so I basically that year I hunted half an hour, 45 minutes.
Less than an hour.
Yeah, less than an hour that whole season. That's the way it works out sometimes. Yeah. Sometimes you work your butt off all season and don't get one. Other times
No, that was 240 pounds.
Yeah.
That was a big one. So there's a nice picture. Derrick took some good pictures of like deer out of the window of the camp and stuff, kind of like your view inside the camp, looking at the game pole. Huh. And I like those pictures. And there's a picture of that buck that had just gotten hung up. Snow squall had come through, snowing really hard there at one point. Then there's a partridge hanging beside it. And he goes, I got the crap house bird that afternoon. So it must have been a bird hanging out by the outhouse. He hung it up by the deer. So that I'll put a picture of that up. But yeah, so day one, successful. Into some deer, nice buck down. So there's 2 guys that have deer. Next morning, inch of new snow. And everybody, as I'm reading through everyone's accounts of that day, everybody was tracking deer.
Yeah.
So that day, that was a really good day. Joe shot a 145-pound doe. Second day at deer camp. There was a buck with her, but he didn't see it.
Yeah.
And then Dean chased an 8-pointer all morning. And that was the one that the Quebecer shot.
Yeah.
So, and we've told that story before. You guys were headed out to an area. He saw a nice buck track crossing the road. Said, let me out here.
Drop me off. Pick me up coming back that night.
Pick me up on the way back.
Yeah.
And and Derrick had put in there that, yeah, he, guy, Quebecer shot it. He was discouraged.
Yeah.
And he ends up shooting a 7-pointer at 12:15. And I think that was 182 pounds. And he had a 5-mile walk back to camp because Derrick had his knife.
Yeah, I didn't have a knife to.
Yeah. So, and then Dale that day, he was tracking a buck and he saw 2 does that day. And yeah, and then I think you and Derrick shot 5 birds.
Yeah.
That day and had spaghetti for supper. So there's 2 more deer.
Yeah.
Or 2 deer shot. So Joe got a big doe.
2 days, 2 deer. Yeah.
No, it was 2 days, 3 deer.
Yeah.
One
was in the bank before we got there. Yeah.
No, you're at 4 deer now.
Oh, yes. Yes.
2 deer were shot on Tuesday.
Yes. Right.
You shot one on Monday.
Yeah.
And Derrick already had a deer.
Yeah.
So there's 4 guys that are now done. Now that was, you guys weren't much for partiers because I read a lot of it. Cards, lights out at 8:15 p.m.
Yeah.
So that's the way we are at camp.
Yeah. Some of the boys like to have an adult, and some of them weren't drinkers, but some of the boys had adult beverages but the deer hunting was a priority,
Yeah.
And
they'd have a few drinks and go to bed early, 8:15.
Yeah.
11:21, not much went on. You guys saw deer. But nothing shot on 11:21. Then 11:22, Derrick's hunting with Kevin.
Yeah.
They were tracking some deer. And it's kind of one of those instances where you're deer hunting and everyone else that already has shot deer is seeing deer.
Well, you hadn't mentioned Dale yet. When did Dale?
So Dale, on this day, he shoots a 128-pound buck.
Yeah.
And so I guess I believe Dean was with him. But yeah, so now Dale's got a deer. So we're what, 5 deer?
Yeah.
That week. So then we get into the next day. So Kevin's the only one left hunting.
Kevin's the only one.
He's got 2 days left in the season.
There was 6 of us back then.
Yeah, so Friday.
And we eventually get up to, I think, the highest, 9 guys. You and Zach came in as you got older, and Jody came in. So
11:23, this was a good day. They were into some deer. It was 40 degrees that day, rainy. I guess they went over to a spot that was quite a ways away, deer hunting, and everyone else went over mid-morning. Mm-hmm. So basically the whole group of guys are kind of in the same area, but only one's deer hunting. And Dean's tracking with them. And that was the morning you guys saw the buck standing beside Kevin's pickup.
We were actually headed out of the woods that day. Must have been Saturday.
No, that was Friday.
Was it Friday?
Yeah, it was the next day you guys had left.
I thought
Saturday
the day
morning.
we saw like I say, sometimes the details get...
you guys left him a note.
Yeah.
And so that day they tracked a huge buck.
Yeah.
And I think Kevin got 3 shots off at it.
Yeah.
And nicked it. Didn't.
Yeah.
It wasn't a serious hit. Wasn't a serious wound. But I guess it was a huge buck.
Yeah.
And they were into an area that I guess was just like a horse barn. There was a pasture. Like it was just tracked up.
Yeah.
It was so hard to track deer. There was one instance they were talking about going into an area. And
they call that the barnyard.
It was just, barnyard, excuse me. It was, they were just having a terrible time. And I guess this buck was pretty easy because he was so big.
Yeah.
He was easy to stick with. And never got it. It was a superficial wound. Mm. And I think they caught up to it. They started tracking it that morning and caught it at 8:30.
Mm-hmm.
in the morning. So big buck, that one got away. So now we're into the final day of the week. He's the last one to not have a deer. And you guys all left that morning.
Yeah, we headed out.
Did a group photo.
Yeah.
And then you guys left for civilization, and Derrick stayed back with him. They were going to hunt Saturday.
Mm.
And so Saturday, it was 40 degrees, foggy, kind of drizzly, and it started raining at 2 p.m. that day. But so it was kind of those foggy days are always good.
Yeah.
A little bit of a drizzle. And so they get on a buck track that morning. They jump it at 7:58. And Kevin gets some shots off at it and knocks it down. And it got its legs back up under it and took off. And I think he fired at it again when it was running. So they stayed with it all day, and they caught up to it at 11:36, shot it in its bed.
Yeah.
They just jumped some moose up, and the buck had bedded down. And it was kind of preoccupied with the noise of the moose. And they saw it in a little opening, little clearing. And the buck was looking away and shot it in its neck, in its bed. And that was an 8-pointer, 170 pounds.
Yeah.
And wicked dark. The rack on it was almost black.
Yeah.
It was a really, really dark rack. And so they get the truck at 1:30. So they shot it at 11:36. They get it out to the ditch of the road. So dragging it out, they get it out there at 1:30. And then it was a 37-minute walk to the pickup. And they were pulling in the camp dooryard at 4:06 that night. So I like the details of the time. And Derrick was always good at that.
Yeah.
Obviously checking his watch when something was happening and whatnot. Yeah. They had leftover beans and hot dogs for supper that night.
Yeah. And they stayed up for an extra night.
Yeah, they were the last two.
Yeah.
But some of the interesting things like back then. So everyone shot a deer that year. Would have been nice if you guys had a group photo of all the deer that year. But do you know how much groceries were for 6 men for a week at camp?
$75.
Any guesses? It was $180.
$180. Okay.
So $30 a person.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems to me that's what I remember. We anteed in about $30 a person.
I go to the grocery store right now, and with one bag, and I'm $180.
Yeah.
I feel like.
Yeah.
So, and you got to consider that was the way you guys did it then was everyone did a meal.
Yeah. Everybody was responsible for a supper.
So
through the week,
you guys so a lot of stuff, like as I was going through there, chili, spaghetti, shepherd's pie.
I always did. Narda made a lasagna. Yeah. And I always took a lasagna up. And
so the camp groceries were...
And Kevin took usually Kevin was the first Sunday night, and we would have lobster stew.
Yeah.
So
one time I think it was oyster stew.
Yeah.
In there, but
seafood chowder or whatever. Chowder. Yeah.
There's so many stories in there.
Yeah.
And 1990 there was just a lot going on that week. You guys were seeing deer every day, into deer every day. That was really, really good week. Those were good years.
Yeah.
I like the older stories better because I was there for the...
Well, I like them because I was a young man at the time, and
that
we all were young men, and in fact, I was the oldest in the group, Paul.
Yeah,
I was, but they all were they weren't far behind me. Dale was just a half a year behind me, but I was the oldest in the group, and now Paul, there's out of that original, we'll say 6. I don't know if. Derrick still hunts, I think, and I hunt. Dean has passed.
Dean was a machine.
Dean was a good hunter, hard worker.
Strong.
He had that Washington County work ethic there. He was a hard worker. He didn't mind suffering a little bit.
No, he didn't.
Or a lot.
And I was talking to Derrick the other day about it, and Derrick was like, he was a good guy to have on the other end of a drag rope.
Oh, yeah, he was. He was tough, like you say. He wasn't afraid of work. And
so, it's that time of year right now where you start getting the itch.
Yeah, well, I was thinking, Paul,
about it.
Our moose week is next month.
It is. The end of September.
Yeah, and I've started to think about getting stuff together, getting ready, maybe putting some trail cams out and stuff. And so, yeah, that's next month, although it's the end of next month, and we're only in the beginning of this month. So basically almost 2 months away. So
I figured, we're in this transition period, start throwing in some deer stories.
Yeah.
Just go in chronological order. As I was going through this journal and going through pictures and stuff, it was getting me kind of antsy for deer season. And I think a lot of other people kind of the same way. You're seeing more stuff posted online regarding deer season and stuff like that. So it's starting to kind of creep up on you.
Yeah.
And before you know it, it'll be fall time and we'll be doing it for a month or 2 months and it'll be over.
Just and I still I still look forward to it. I don't think there's a day that goes by in my life that I don't think about deer hunting, in some form or fashion. If I'm on the road, even in town here,
I'm always looking.
I'm always checking the fields and stuff in the back corners and looking for deer, moose, any wildlife.
Yeah.
So it's never far from my thoughts. So
no, a lot of fun times. A lot more to be had too.
Yeah.
This year, hopefully it'll be a good year.
Yeah.
Hopefully there's some
Yeah.
an easy winter. So
we had the easiest winter that I can remember in my lifetime up here.
Now if we
no snow and no cold temperatures. So
now if we can just get some decent conditions to deer hunt on.
Yeah.
That'll be, because even going through this journal, it speaks volumes on how hunting conditions play such a pivotal role in your success. Even for guys that don't deer track, you look in there, the years that it was warm and no snow, the success rate of you guys at camp was extremely low.
Yeah, you're right. Even if you didn't track, Paul, if you get snow, you can find an area where they're at anyway, and where they're crossing. And if you want to set up on a crossing, but you're right. There's such a huge area up there, and the deer numbers, even then, they're a lot better then than they are now.
Yeah.
But, it was tough to find.
There was a lot of excerpts in there, like went into such and such an area and no deer sign.
Yeah.
No fresh deer sign.
Yeah.
And then you'd find a spot, they were calling like Hurricane Alley. It sounded like it was just a crap hole.
Yeah.
And man, it was just, like I said, a barnyard, just tracked up. And we've talked about that a lot in the past, where if you just hunt for a week, your deer camp week or whatever, you usually spend half the week
looking for deer,
trying to figure out where the pockets of deer are and narrowing that down. And then productive hunting tends to be the second half of the week.
And that's not a place you can scout because you're, what are we, 100 miles from that place as we sit right now.
Yeah.
So you're not going to go up and, that's a 200-mile trip. You're not going to go up and scout before
There's no cell service.
Yeah.
So you're not, like nowadays, you're not using cell cams.
No. Oh, there were no trail cams back in that day.
No.
Our trail cam was maybe a twig over a trail to see if he knocked it down,
and you've done that.
Yeah, I've taken a branch and just set it across the trail to see if it get pushed over. So
I'll put lots of pictures up in this one of those first few years, and we're only at 1990.
Yeah.
So there was another.
Well, I got my journals. I should have looked that up, Paul.
Look it up, and then next time
I should look. I will. Because I've got actually 4 journals, and so I've got to. I recorded every day that, and sometimes mine weren't in detail either, Paul. And they were.
Well, it depends. If you're hunting hard all day, you don't want to.
It was more. I put more down if we were successful, what we saw, if we were successful, and then weather conditions, and then if anything out of the ordinary happened, you would put it in there.
Like Derrick, like 1990, obviously he had extensive journal entries because he'd shot a deer before
lots
camp.
Of time.
Everyone's out hunting.
Yeah,
he's got all kinds of time to chill out and fill out his journal, kind of put in some stuff that you normally probably wouldn't include.
That's exactly
more
right.
Detailed stuff.
Yeah,
and so kudos for Derrick for really appreciate that.
Yeah.
I really enjoy going through it.
Yeah.
And just like I said, it's all the nuanced things: temperature, what you guys had for supper, bedtime. A lot of bedtimes are 8 o'clock, 7:30. A little bit of cards, nothing too.
Yeah. Like I say, maybe a beer or two after, but bed early for sure.
I mean, and like we've talked about that, if you get back at camp if you're hunting close and you're back at dark or just after dark, you go to bed at 8. You've been at camp for 4 hours in the dark. You know, get a good night's sleep and get up early, 4 o'clock, 4:30. And
a lot of times when we were hunting out of that camp in 1990, Paul, we were hunting it was a pretty good drive to where I'm thinking over an hour each way.
Yeah. Outside of you shooting that buck out behind camp, everyone else was hunting out.
Yeah.
Over in those other areas further away.
And I knew there was a pocket of deer there behind camp, you know, Paul. Up on towards Squirrel Mountain, I knew there was some deer there, so I thought, well, I'm going to try it. I'm going to give that a shot. And we ended up, we shot some deer there.
Yeah.
You know, I got 3 or 4 there, I think, in that area.
Did you?
Yeah. Yeah, that big one, and then the 202 was going up Squirrel Mountain,
yeah,
and then
right there.
I got 2 on the other side of Drake Brook.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, shot a lot of deer up there.
So at least 2. So that's 4 right there that I can think of off the top of my head that I got right behind camp, basically. Yeah. So, yeah.
All right. Well, next week we'll do it again.
Yeah.
I already got a topic for next week. I've actually got a pile of topics on my phone. I keep a running list. Yeah. I just get ideas if I'm in the shower or something like that.
Yeah.
But always the timing isn't always right, so I kind of sit on them for a while.
Yeah.
But
well, it was good timing with that. I think it was LD 2238, Paul. The 72-hour waiting
on my
period
list for
because
a while.
It goes into effect Friday.
Yeah.
So
and I figured,
And the last I heard too was David Trahan. He's the head of Sportsmen's Alliance of Maine. They are going to put a lawsuit in on it.
I hope they sue the heck out of them because it's going to cost. Yeah, it's going to cost companies some money.
Yeah,
they're just not going to.
Yeah,
like we were talking about Kittery.
Yeah,
you know, what's the point when you can go 2 seconds across a border?
Yeah,
and purchase a gun, get it that day.
Yeah, get it.
So
have it in your hands the same day.
Kill your firearm sales.
Yeah.
Why stop there?
Yeah.
To get a gun.
Yeah.
You know, up here we're in the middle of nowhere, so we're a long ways from getting out of the state up here.
Yeah.
So we're.
But there again, like Kittery Trading Post, one of their concerns, you know, they have a lot of people travel to Maine to hunt bear and to hunt deer and stuff, and if they're coming up and sportsmen love to look at gear and stuff, they're going to stop at the Kittery Trading Post and the LL Beans and stuff, and they may see the weapon, that they want, and they're not
buying it.
They're not going to buy it because they're on their way to
hunting.
Moose hunting or bear hunting, and they're not going to wait 3 days to. No. That's the real and that's what Kittery Trading Post. That's their beef. That's their argument.
And by the sounds of it, state didn't care that they had to. They're like, well, moved because they threatened to move to New Hampshire, right?
Yes,
and it seems
right across the bridge. Yeah,
no one seems to care.
No,
they're gonna.
No,
they threatened to do that. So it's like
no. Whatever. They don't care.
Have businesses move out of the state. That's great.
Yeah, they don't care. Well, everybody's moving out of California, and Yeah,
it's a whole friggin'.
Yeah.
Well, we're becoming little California here. We're not careful.
So.
Yeah, they're all moving to Texas and.
Yeah.
Florida.
Yeah.
Nashville.
Yeah, Tennessee. Yeah. So.
But anyway. Yeah. Not to get fired up on politics. Politics sucks.
It affects all of us.
It does.
And
we got to be aware at the very least.
And what's going on. For outdoorsmen, it's always eroding away our rights, and it's going in the wrong direction.
No, it never. never benefits us.
A step at a time, and so
it's always a fight.
Things have changed a lot in my lifetime.
It's always a fight.
They'll continue to change. So
yeah.
So
that's why more people need to do this.
Yeah.
Hunt and fish.
Yeah.
Get your kids outside.
For sure.
It's good for the soul.
Yeah. Is that the end of it?
No.
Is that the sign
I
off?
guess so. Yeah, we can end right there. Anything else, though?
No.
All right. Well, we'll do it again next Saturday or Sunday.
All righty. Yeah.
Got to get back on track.
Yeah.
So, all righty. I guess till next time, get outside.
It's good for the soul.
See ya.